Welcome to episode 6 of Everything Wrong with MMPR, a series where I look at all the editing errors and just general frickin' insanity from the original series of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Now many of you know this, but the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers wasn't really its own thing. It's heavily based on a Japanese show, and each English episode reused and recycled a lot of the original Japanese footage, but they couldn't use any footage that showed the Japanese actors' faces. So you're left with this weird mashup where they're using old footage and new footage and Japanese footage and just trying to get different episodes together to make one coherent story. It's so weird. Anyway, without any more intro, let's talk about episode 6. Food fight. The episode begins with the Rangers helping out at a food festival run by their school to help raise funds for a kindergarten playground. Cuts to Rita on her moon base, who for some reason is really sick. Now it never really explains why she's feeling sick, but she sees that the Rangers are eating food and the idea of eating makes her feel even more sick, so she wants to send a monster down to kill them because of that. That's fair. Now back down on Earth at the food festival, Bulk and Skull, the school bullies, do this. Okay, this isn't technically an editing error in the show or anything, but if a random teenager with earrings yells food fight, you don't actually have to do it. He's not a goddamn cop. Look at all these morons. He says food fight, they just do it. What are you, idiots? Anyway, the principal gets hella mad and he shuts down the food festival, which is good timing because at that moment Zordon contacts the Rangers to let them know that Rita has sent down a monster called Pudgy Pig to eat all the food on Earth, and he starts by face planting a picnic. Now that's probably one of the most realistic scenes in the show because that's also how I eat food at a picnic. So anyway, the Rangers teleport back to the command center and Zordon says this.
I calculate he will consume the entire supply of food on Earth in 48 hours.
Wait, what? So in 48 hours everyone on Earth will be dead because of a food shortage and you guys are just watching a live stream of the pig eating some fruit. Frickin' go now! Stop him now! Leave now! Fuck! They do eventually go to try and stop him, but he eats all their weapons and then he teleports them away to a park, which is a power that he never uses again for the rest of the episode, which he should because it's very helpful. Zordon tells the Rangers that the pig has now gone to the food festival and he's destroying the food festival. Wait a minute. Wait, wasn't the food festival shut down because of that food fight? It was already destroyed? So you're telling me all the people left and then just came back? Even though the food was all on the ground, they just continued on with the festival? Okay, the Rangers unfortunately get there a little bit too late and Pudgy Pig is already gone.
Ew, what a mess.
There was already a mess from the food fight. It was half an hour ago and you were in it, you doofus. Now the Rangers are clever. They notice that the pig didn't eat any of the hot food, so they get a plan to try and trick him to eat some of that hot food and hope that he'll vomit up their weapons and they'll get them back. Now Pudgy Pig is now at a food processing plant, so the Rangers grab a bunch of food and they morph and they head there to fight him, except this is a transition between English and Japanese footage, so the food they were holding kind of disappears and reappears after they've done some Power Ranger posing. They sneak a secret hot radish into a sandwich and the idiot pig eats it, which causes him to vomit up the weapons just like they planned, and they use those weapons to beat him to a pulp and blast him to death. But wait, I hear you say this happens in like every episode. You think the monster's dead, but then Rita throws her staff down and the monster comes back to life and it grows really big, and no, that doesn't happen in this one. It just doesn't. Why? Well, I'll tell you. Remember how Rita was unexplainably sick at the start of the episode? Well, in the Japanese episode, she was actually weak because she was on a crash diet. Now, she saw a family eating some food and sent Pudgy Pig down to attack them and steal all their food. The Rangers tried to fight the pig in the Japanese version, but couldn't, and were sucked into a magic portal by this guy named Gnome, who's this old hippie looking dude. And he forced them to partake in this weird eating challenge, and he said if they passed it, he'd give them the herb that they needed to feed to the pig so he'd vomit up their weapons. The Japanese show doesn't make any more sense than the English one, but it's whack. Now, none of the Japanese eating storyline was actually used in the English plot, but some of the footage was used in weird ways. Remember how in the English episode Pudgy Pig teleported the Rangers away but never used that power again? The footage from that was actually the Japanese footage of when Gnome sucked the Rangers into a little portal thing to save them. But that Gnome guy isn't in the English version, so they randomly just gave the pig teleporting powers in like one scene so they could conveniently move on to the next plot point. Also in the Japanese version it was explained that Rita didn't throw her staff to grow Pudgy pudgy pig because she was weak after that diet. The English version doesn't talk about her being sick ever again though, and it gives no reason why she didn't throw her stuff. So you're just like, what, did she forget she's a witch? Hey Rita, she's magic. Did she forget? She forget she can make them giant? What's going on? She forget? What's happening? So the Rangers head back to the youth center. They're still kind of talking about if they raised enough money to buy that kindergarten playground equipment, and the principal comes and, oh no, he eats one of the hot sandwiches.
Little hot, but not bad.
Oh, did we stop? Have we stopped laughing? So that's the end of episode 6, and I think it's a pretty good example of the weird anti-plots that most episodes of MMPR tend to have. Hey, so it's very time consuming for me to go through the old Japanese and English footage to make these episodes, so if you really like these and you want to see more, consider supporting me on Patreon for like $2 a month. And if you know a lot about Power Rangers and there's some mistakes or trivia I missed about this episode, please jump in the comments and let me know. I like to talk about it there. Have a more phenomenal day.